Hello and welcome to the Business of Story. I'm your host, Park Howell, and author of my new book, Brand Bewitchery, that'll show you how to clarify your brand story, teach you how to tell it to amplify your impact, and ultimately simplify your life with a crystal clear vision and compelling mission to captivate and convert your customers. So you can grab your print or Kindle copy now on Amazon, or of course you can order through Apple Books. Last week, Chad Burmeister of ScaleX.ai was on the Business of Story sharing how to use AI to actually humanize your brand storytelling. I know it seems like an oxymoron, but we had so much fun on that episode that he decided to sponsor this one. So I'm proud to tell you that today's show is brought to you by ScaleX.ai, voted top 10 AI for sales company by Selling Power magazine. ScaleX provides sales pipeline as a service. And here's Chad's promise to you. ScaleX.ai can get you a meeting with almost anyone. Whether you are looking to penetrate a target list of 500, 5,000, or 500,000, ScaleX leverages artificial intelligence and people to connect you with your top prospects and put meetings on your calendar so that you and your sales team can focus on higher value work. Just listen to last week's show to hear how they do it. So whether you are a startup still discovering product market fit or you are an established B2B company, one thing most companies have in common is the need to generate meetings with prospects to create a powerful pipeline that delivers. ScaleX can help. To learn more, visit www.scalex, that's ScaleX.ai, and click on Schedule a Conversation. Chad, thanks so much for your support of the Business of Story. Much appreciated. Today, we have a LinkedIn storytelling expert to help you shape and share your brand stories on business's most prolific and influential platform. But first, this week's story marketing moment, where I share one thing you can do to amplify your brand storytelling right now. And here it is. Resist the urge to spam your prospects on LinkedIn or any platform for that matter. I know you're proud of your product or service, and I'm sure you have helped tons of executives be more efficient and effective. But you're not connecting because no one cares about what you make, your features and functions. What they care about is what you can make happen in their life. Therefore, in your outreach efforts, after you have connected with and know you can actually help a prospect, use the ABT, that powerful foundational narrative framework of and, but, and therefore, to place your audience at the center of your story and hook them from the very start. In fact, I just used it on you. Could you feel it? But here's the beautiful thing. Use the ABT to focus all of your communications. It's not a story, but it uses the proven story framework of setup, problem, and resolution to help you hack through the noise and hook the hearts of your audiences. If you want to see the ABT superbly executed, check out the LinkedIn bio for today's guest, Glenn Marvin of Connector, and that's Connector with a K. They're a digital marketing coaching firm in Auckland, New Zealand. Glenn and his Connector team have helped thousands of small businesses achieve incredible growth by growing their influence and connections on LinkedIn, but doing it the proper way.
If you think about LinkedIn as a bar, not as a platform, and if you could walk into a bar and it had every CEO, every VP, every sales manager, every decision maker that you wanted to talk to, sitting at that bar, around a few tables, having a couple of drinks, and you could get into that bar with no bouncer, no gatekeeper, and you could rock up to any one of those tables and listen to their conversations and what they had to say. And then every now and then you could just chip in and you continued to add value. Some of those people might actually say, well, why don't you come around to my office one day and we can carry on this conversation, because I'm enjoying it and I can see the value that you can add to my organization. That's LinkedIn.
Glenn shares the 3 most important areas on LinkedIn that you should care the most about with your brand storytelling. Plus, he reveals the 4 different kinds of posts you should have in your content repertoire and how to vary their use for the biggest impact. And of course, with all of these do's, he'll share the don'ts. No, not donuts, the don'ts. So please welcome to the Business of Story, my good friend, Glenn Marvin. Good day, mate.
G'day, mate. How cool is it to be welcome onto the Business of Story podcast with a little bit of Southern Hemisphere New Zealand welcome. G'day. How are you, mate?
G'day. Well, I always feel a little self-conscious as an American because we're like, hey, dude, what's going on? But there's just something about mate and good day, mate, that is just, I don't know, much happier.
Well, let's just say it is a good day and you are a mate. So perfect.
There you have it. We had a chance to get acquainted about 1.5 years ago when I was down in New Zealand and Auckland and just absolutely loved it. We had so much fun down there. Michelle and I went for a couple weeks and you and I got acquainted and I felt like we were literally brothers from a different mother, roughly the same age, have had the same trajectories, very similar in the advertising world. And we're both now in the coaching world in one respect or another. So it's great to have you back. You were here early March when we were all just getting in the grips of COVID, and you had joined us with another fellow down underer, Sean Callahan from Melbourne, Australia, anecdote out there. And at that time, we talked about you specifically in the lockdown you guys had just gone into to try to nip this in the bud as best you could. And the impact, I remember hearing it in your voice a little bit, the trepidation, as we all have had, of the impact on your business. So what happened? And 6 months later, where are you?
Yeah, well, as a country, we were, I think, very, very lucky that we had put up a united front. So we had this saying in the media and coming all the way from our leader, Jacinda Ardern, we're a team of 5 million and we're battling against COVID. It wasn't about party factions. It wasn't about victimizing people that had COVID and playing the blame game. It's here. We've got to deal with it. Let's do something. And the term that was used by government and very, very well was we need to go hard and we need to go early. So that was great for battling COVID from a health perspective. But the consequence of that was literally every business had to shut down. Literally every single person had to stay home outside of essential workers like hospital workers and things like that.
How long were you shut down?
We were shut down for, I think it was 7 weeks.
How many sleepless nights did you have during that?
About 7 weeks worth.
I mean, it had to have been like really hard on business. What did you do?
Yeah. Well, New Zealand is a small country, 5 million people. And within those 5 million people, there are 300,000 small businesses. 30% of the GDP is driven by small businesses. And in New Zealand, a small business is a business with less than 20 people. Now, I think in the States, a small business is something less than 100. So a business with less than 20 people. And of that, around about 250,000 businesses have 5 or less employees. We're a team of one-man bands going out there, forging our way, trying to do the best we can with the skills that we've got and following passion, which is something I love about living here is people have got the opportunity to go out on their own and just give it a crack. It's very, very easy to set up a business in New Zealand. It's very, very easy to go out there and forge a future for yourself. So we are the new land of opportunity.
Oh, okay. You're going to swipe that from us. Well, We're wide open to have that be taken away. How big is Connector at your company, and what did it mean for you guys getting shut down like that?
So we're definitely a small business. We launched Connector 3 years ago. We're sitting currently at about 8 people across our wider business. Being a marketing coaching business, dealing primarily with small business. When they've got those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-man bands, they have to stay at home. They have no business unless they're in a consulting type business where they can work remotely and offer their services like that. Literally, there was no money circulating in the economy.
How much of your business got shut down?
We were down around about 80% overnight in regards to our overarching business.
Lost 80% of your business.
Yeah.
So, and then 7 weeks of sleep in addition to that.
Yeah. So that was a big eye opener for us. We're very lucky being a coaching business that very, very quickly the people that freaked out to start with came back on because they knew that they just couldn't do nothing. They had to position themselves for when we came out of lockdown, when business started resuming, that they were the provider of choice. So we made a deliberate choice to be the beacon of light in times of darkness and focus on positivity. We were running live education sessions, free education sessions every single day. I think I probably worked harder for less money than I've ever worked in my entire life over those 5 to 7 weeks, focused on positivity, focusing on giving free advice, trying to get our voice heard in that sea of darkness. And it's very, very hard to get heard when it's doom and gloom everywhere.
You were doing a course on LinkedIn that you usually charge for, and you were giving it away, although you had to charge. And I remember your LinkedIn post where you said, "I apologize, but I have to charge you $1 in order to make this work." But essentially were giving your expertise away.
With the platform that we were using, it had to be purchased, and the cheapest we could do it for was $1. So we were giving it away for $1. We gave around about $200,000 worth of free education away in regards to that course alone.
So let's jump ahead to today. You, before we started this show, said something pretty astounding to me.
Yeah, we are now end of July. We were 56% up on the calendar year 2019 to 2020. So we're having the best year ever. And we're on track to more than double, potentially triple our 2019 revenue.
Just so I could do the math here for myself, you basically fall off the face of the earth in March and April. You give it all away. You start seeing an uptick in June. Your country's coming back to life. People are getting out again. And then, boom, July takes off. And now you're going to have what sounds like could be a record year for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, we've got 2 companies. And for the last 3 years, Connector was by far the smaller division. And at the end of 2020, we will be by far the largest division.
What's your other company?
The other company is Surefire Search, which is a specialist search engine optimization and Google Ads company. And we specifically work with larger companies with decent size budgets of 10, 20 grand a month type thing of minimum of spend.
So when we met a year and a half ago now, and then I've had a chance to work with you with a couple clients here in America, which has been a real pleasure. It's been fun to see how you and your team, come together and rally around very quickly getting a digital plan together. But what I knew you first by was your amazing work in LinkedIn. And in this show, over 5 years, we've never really covered how in the world do you tell your story and share your story on LinkedIn. And what I've experienced, as I'm assuming all of our listeners have, is I get a dozen requests a day now. I mean, before COVID, I might see a dozen a week, if that. But now I get hit right and left. And then everything seems like 90% of it is followed up with a spam. And it does nothing but just turn me off to that person. Now I only accept maybe a third of those requests coming in. What do you do about that, or what do you coach your clients?
I thought it may be, but it'd be a reflection of your burgeoning celebrity status that's coming from being the top storytelling podcast on the planet. But
might I remind you, the world's most industrious storyteller too. I got to throw that out. A client gave me that. I didn't, but I loved it when he did. So I said, I'm all about that. Anyway,
it can also be a reflection of the desperation in the market. LinkedIn and LinkedIn strategy is actually very, very simple. And we've had the vast majority of our growth outside of this last quarter, where we've had a bit of a boon in regards to business development strategy with a couple of large contracts with government. But by and all, the vast majority of our clients come through seeing us giving value on LinkedIn. And so using LinkedIn to grow and develop your business is very, very simple, but it's not a platform to sell on. It's a platform to give. And when you give value, people are attracted to you. So what I always say right from the outset is the goal of LinkedIn is not to sell. The goal of LinkedIn is about building relationships. And it's to take that online connection and transfer it so that they become a real world relationship. Because the money is always in the relationships. Okay. People want to do business with people they like, they trust, and have something of value that they can offer them. You can be the best salesperson in the world, and you'll just by sheer grit and determination and the old school methodology, you will win business if you have a cold calling, I'm just going to spam everybody with a pitch. Yep, you'll win business, but you will burn so many more bridges. So there's some really, really simple strategies and tactics that you can use as long as your intent is genuine that will help position your personal brand and help create inbound inquiries that will actually turn into real world deals that'll grow you both personally and help you acquire new business. And so much of it revolves around that backbone philosophy around story and storytelling.
What are some of your tips? What do you tell? If I were to knock on your door and show up today at Connector and say, I want to really leverage LinkedIn, what would you tell me?
So there's three core areas, really. Number one is getting the basics right in and around your profile. And if you follow this guy, I don't know, he's what's his name? Park Howell or Park Howell, something like that. He's got
I
this.
get that all the time, by the way.
He's got this abridged version of a storytelling called an ABT. And a really, really great idea is to use that ABT philosophy and methodology in the about profile summary section of your profile. So tell that little bit of a backstory, who you are, what you are doing. Then there's the but. What is that problem that drove you to make that change and follow your passion towards what you do, which then leads to the why you're doing what you're doing. And then you can go into the services that you offer because you can get that hook about, I've been in the marketing game for 14 years and I've worked with some of the largest companies in New Zealand, but working in the agency model that is completely broken because it's about filling their own pockets, not necessarily helping small businesses grow. So that's why I formed Connector, because I wanted to help small business owners take control of their own destiny, get clarity around what they need, direction on how to do it, and hold them to account so that they can actually get results. Blah, 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 blah. These are the things that we do.
And for the uninitiated listener who may be new to Business of Story, ABT stands for and, but, and therefore. It's a fantastic narrative framework. It's not a story in and of itself, but it's a story structure that sets the stage.
It's a very, very simple tool to use to figure out how to structure pretty much anything that you push out.
Exactly.
Get your profile sorted out. Yes, have an image, a good photo of yourself. Don't cut and paste this Facebook photo of you with a couple of cans of beer on New Year's Day. Things like that. Professionalism is really, really important, but you need to make it personal and it needs to be you and a reflection of who you are as a person. It cannot, and make it in the first person. Please don't do in the third person. I'm writing a curriculum vitae, and I'm looking, if you want a CV and you write it as a CV, maybe if you're looking for a job, but people want to connect with people. So make it about you and humanize your profile. Get the basics right. Secondly, and probably most importantly, and if we can again hook this right back into storytelling, a great story has engagement. It engages the reader. Engagement with your audience, and your audience are those people that are, either commenting on your feed in regards to the content that you create, or posting content themselves. Engagement is probably the most critical factor.
Can you give us an example of how you have used a story that maybe surprised you in the amount of engagement it got?
Yeah. Don't be afraid to tell something a little personal. A recent one, actually, it was just before COVID. I actually shared how I had completely stuffed up one of the engagements that we had. I completely misread a situation. We dropped the ball, and I just went through what was going through my head, how we stuffed up, and then what actions we then took to try and rectify the situation. And I fell on my sword in front of that person and said, "Look, absolutely, we've cocked up, we've stuffed up. The important thing is what can we do to make this right?" The beautiful thing about that situation, not just the story that we put on LinkedIn, is most people, in regards to having great customer experiences, you ask anybody about what is, tell me some of the best customer experiences that you've ever had. I would say at least 50% of those stories will come from when they have initially had a bad experience and what that company did to rectify the situation. And so I literally just told the story about how we stuffed up. We're human. We make mistakes. We're not perfect in everything that we do. The impact that it had on our client, and then the steps that we took in regards to proactively going and seeing them before that they saw the mistake, falling on our sword, and the discussion that we had around how do we actually get things back on track.
And you just shared this with the LinkedIn world?
Shared that with the LinkedIn world, and I can't even remember, but it was probably 50,000 views. I'm not into the vanity metrics, but
But it worked.
It worked. The critical thing in around the engagement pieces is you can go out there and tell all the stories you want in the world, but if all you're doing is barking like a little dog at the fence, then people aren't going to engage back. So your audience is incredibly important. So if somebody comments on one of your posts, or if there is somebody that has posted something that you resonate with, it's really important that you engage with them, and don't just stop at liking it, or doing one of the emotional reactions. Actually comment and give them the kudos that they deserve. Make it more than a hey, nice post. What does that post actually mean for you? What insights or learnings have you got from it, or what can you add to the information that they have shared to it? And there's two reasons. The selfish reason is that we'll tweak the LinkedIn algorithm, going, oh, you two have got something in common. I'm going to start showing you more of each other's content because it looks like you guys are engaging with each other. So that's number one. But the real benefit is when you start engaging with people, you're actually building resonance and you're building rapport and you're strengthening the relationship. So it will take it from just a connection or somebody who you've never even potentially even had any form of contact with. It is taking those baby steps to start forming a real world relationship with them.
Glenn, question for you real quick here. People are so busy, and I know I'm busy too, like everyone else. And quite often I just do a drive-by on LinkedIn, look out, see what's going on, and then move on. How much time do you put into LinkedIn on a daily basis, and or what do you recommend to your customers? How much time should we be spending there?
Yeah, I suppose it comes down to what you want out of it. Okay. And I'm absolutely unashamedly there for the money. I've made some beautiful friendships. I've made some great business deals, and I've got some great relationships with people that will probably never translate into money. But if we didn't get any business, I'd drop it like a sack of potatoes and move on to something else.
I feel bad. That means you'd drop me off of LinkedIn too.
You're gone, man. No. So when it comes down to it, people spend an inordinate amount of time cold calling or crafting email messages and things like that, because what do they want? They want to drum up business. They want it to translate into sales. LinkedIn is the long game. So We, as a small business, probably get somewhere in the vicinity of $250 to $350,000 of business directly from LinkedIn on an annual basis, which, in the grand scheme of things, is probably not a huge amount of money for big businesses, but for small businesses, that's a lot of cash. And so, how much time would you be prepared to put into a marketing strategy? And so think about it as a marketing strategy, not social media, to develop $250,000 a year in business. How much money do you want to make? Translate that into time, effort, and input.
Is LinkedIn your go-to channel in business?
Yep. LinkedIn, and believe it or not, good old email marketing. We love communicating to our audience and our database with email, with adding value, giving them free offers and training tips and things like that. And it's amazing the engagement that you get back in and around email as well. But LinkedIn, definitely. And then after engagement, I would recommend 4 different types of posts, because if all you did was try and educate everybody, we all just get so bored. I get bored of you trying to educate me, Park. Stop trying to tell me how to write stories. I want to
All
hear
right,
about.
this interview's over. I
want
gotta
to
go.
hear about you, buddy. I want to hear about you. So education is definitely an important component, but education, you will find, gets very low engagement because it doesn't excite me. It doesn't entice me to engage. It's like,
It's
oh
wah,
yeah,
wah, wah, wah.
yeah, I get that. I understand that. Thanks, toss, move on. I might get a little bit of information out of it that I can intake of it. But kudos posts. So, after our session today, I'm going to be doing a little post on LinkedIn with a screenshot of this session, going how awesome it is to spend some time with my old mate Park Howell from Business of Story.
Please use the screenshot where I was actually recording versus the first 5 minutes of this episode where I forgot to push the record button.
And I will be saying how the processes that you teach have had absolute massive impact in the way that I view content that we create and the growth of our business. And you'll like that. You'll say you'll be like, oh,
damn right. I'm gonna like that. I'm gonna screenshot it. I'm gonna send it to my mom. I'm gonna share it. Yeah.
But there is so much self-congratulation stuff that goes on social media. Facebook's the worst for it, where hey, look at the gold watch, look at the Lamborghini. I'm standing in front of the private jet, and it's all about me, 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 me. Well, people get sick of that. Maybe in New Zealand our culture is a little bit more understated, and we just get sick of it a bit faster. But if you can lift somebody else up, if you can give somebody else some kudos and make them feel good about themselves, well, they're going to reciprocate in kind at some stage, and they're going to be thankful that you have singled them out for a little bit of praise. So don't be shy. Don't be afraid of giving some of your clients, giving some of your staff, and just even calling out somebody that's doing good work in your industry and saying, hey, look, I love seeing what this person is doing out there, right? It's had an impact on me. Even if you've just gone and had a meeting with somebody, it's like, had a great meeting with Park today. Love seeing what he's doing in the storytelling scene, and helping businesses completely reframe their brand. So there's education, there's kudos, there's opinion. As much as it may grate some people, and I would definitely say keep politics, the old adage, keep politics and religion out of it, but have an opinion and comment on things that are relevant in your industry and stuff that is going on today that actually reflects your values and your purpose, because you will attract people that are aligned with those values and those purpose, and those are the people that you want to be working with, right? Don't try and be this chameleon that is trying to be attractive to every single person, because you will find that when they reach out to you and you end up having that meeting, or they for some reason you actually manage to sign them as a client, they will most likely end up being nightmare clients, and they may either sack you, or you will be in a world of pain dealing with somebody that you just have no alignment with and you don't want to be doing business with. So if you actually have an opinion, you're going to repel people that don't agree with you. But more importantly, you're going to attract people that do align with your values and your vision, and it'll encourage them to probably not necessarily engage in the comments of LinkedIn, but you'll be surprised how many private messages that you get going, "Hey, I loved what you said about that. I didn't have the guts to probably say it in public, but I think the same way." And what a perfect little segue into carrying on that conversation in the chat and setting up a meeting so that you can then go and have a coffee, a beer, a virtual whatever, and that one thing leads to another. And if it doesn't lead to business, it might lead to an introduction to somebody that will.
Last month, Glenn, I had on the show another mate, my good friend Brian Adams from PH Creative in Liverpool, England. And he has just come out with a book, and his subtitle in that book, in brand storytelling, especially internally employee communications when you're trying to attract and retain the top talent, is, and I love this, is very much in line with what you're talking about. He says, repel the many to compel the few.
I love that.
So it goes back to that old concept of don't try to be all things to all people. Go ahead and have a position, have an opinion, and it's okay if you piss some people off. As long as you're doing it, from your hearts, you're doing it for the right motives. But not everyone's going to agree with you.
Yeah, and the last and the fourth of those types of posts is, believe it or not, storytelling. Oh my goodness!
But you can use storytelling throughout, right?
Yeah, but tell those personal stories. So an example of that is every single month this year, I committed to sharing where I'm at with my goals for the year. So at the start of the year, I said I need to get from, I was over 100 kilos. I was 104 kilos. I said my goals are this. I'm going to get from 104 down to 88 kilos.
What's that in pounds?
It's 100 kilos, probably 220 pounds, something like that, 230 pound, 2.2, something like that, maybe 240 pounds. Oh my God. In New Zealand, we sort of like, we just call it heaps, bro.
Heaps, bro.
How much do you weigh? Heaps, bro.
But you run marathons and distance running, and I mean, you're a very fit guy. You ran.
Back into it.
Okay.
So I was going to drop the weight. I was picking up golf again, and I was going to get my golf handicap under 20, double the size of the business, meditate for a minimum of 100 hours over the course of the year. And I also picked up another one and around dropping the alcohol. It wasn't taking control of my life, but I found that I did a 100-day challenge, and I was so much clearer without it. And I found that surprisingly, I didn't need to drink when I went out with my mates.
And are you still off of it?
I have drank 3 times in the last 200 days.
Wow. Congratulations.
And each time was to celebrate, not to commiserate. There were many, many, many times over lockdown where I was tempted by that evil woman that is my wife. Each afternoon at about 3 o'clock, she says, "Glenn, please join me. I need somebody to drink with."
Now, so you took on this challenge before COVID.
Yeah.
It wasn't you were sitting at home pounding COVID drinks and said, something's got to change.
No. And so that's something I share each month. And I just have the traffic light, is it a green button, an orange button, or a red button? How am I tracking against those goals? And I'm really, really clear and open and honest. In regards to our revenue, I don't talk exact dollars, but I talk in percentages. Where are we at versus budget, and where are we at versus the goal? It's amazing how many people absolutely love that. And then since that, you've got other people sort of sharing their goals in the comments, and that sparks people reaching out in private messages about their weight loss journey, or the challenges that they've had with their business. Golfers invite me to go in for a round of golf and things like that, but it's about sparking a conversation. And when you spark the conversation, it leads to building a relationship. None of that, out of all 4 of those posts, were any of those saying, "I'm going to sell you some shit"? No.
And yet That's all we get these days when people connect and,
Yeah.
hey, let me, sell you this, sell you that. Do you have time to jump on a call?
Mm.
No, I don't. Nobody does.
But by doing that, it actually, for me, that gives you permission to occasionally go, hey, I'm putting out an offer.
Yeah.
But if all you do is put out an offer, the blinkers go on and people just glaze over and they very, very quickly disengage from anything that you produce because it's always about you. It's always about what you want and you're always trying to sell. Whereas if you are making it about them, if you are thinking about the content that I produce, is this going to add value to somebody else's life today? They will engage with you. You won't need to sell to them. And that is a very, very quick lesson on LinkedIn. If you think about LinkedIn as a bar, not as a platform, and if you could walk into a bar and it had every CEO, every VP, every sales manager, every decision maker that you wanted to talk to, sitting at that bar, around a few tables, having a couple of drinks, and just chatting amongst themselves. And you could get into that bar with no bouncer, no gatekeeper, and you could rock up to any one of those tables and listen to their conversations and what they had to say. And then every now and then you could just chip in and just add to the conversations that they were having. Every now and then you would get invited to actually be at one of those tables. And then if you got to be at one of those tables and you continued to add value, some of those people might actually say, well, why don't you come around to my office one day and we can carry on this conversation because I'm enjoying it and I can see the value that you can add to my organization. That's LinkedIn. It's the biggest open bar full of decision makers on the planet. Who wouldn't want to be spending time there?
So going back to a question I had earlier, because I don't know if you answered it or if I just missed it, which is probably the latter. Percentage of time-wise, people spending on LinkedIn, is there any set time if someone comes in and say, mark off X percent of your day to at least be on there and engaging?
I would say then some people might freak out. Spend an hour a day.
Hour a day.
Like an hour a day on social media? My God, what are you, 17 years old?
Sound like a pirate right there, by the way.
If I said to you, come around to my private club and meet a few people that can add value to your business, and you can come around here for an hour a day and drum up some business just by having a few conversations, would you see that differently?
Absolutely. Last question on LinkedIn, and then I want to move on to what you're doing with businesses that I've seen happen that are so quick, and your action plan that really makes so much sense, and so much so that it seems like it's a no-brainer, but it's a big brainer because people don't do it unless you're there to guide them. But before we get to that question, Glenn, what is the biggest faux pas or mistake you've made on LinkedIn?
Oh, in the early days of doing video, I was doing video in my car, talking on video while driving, and the hate that I got was immediate and massive. Do you know how many people you're putting at risk? How dare you? And to be honest, it was a crutch because if I was driving, I wasn't self-conscious about how I was looking, how I was sounding. I was concentrating on driving and I was just sharing my rambling thoughts while I was doing it. So I was less stilted and stuttered than if I was sitting in front of the camera thinking about how am I looking and what am I saying. But I realized, they were right. Don't do it.
Were you self-conscious when you first started doing LinkedIn, and are you still today?
I'm not now, but very much so. The hardest thing for people to do, especially around video, is start. That first video was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And most people are incredibly pleasantly surprised about how positive people react. This isn't Twitter where it's full of hate mongers, seem to get pleasure out of dragging people down. LinkedIn, I find, is an incredibly positive, passionate community that, when they see people trying something, they'll support them. You did ask before we came on and around getting meetings. Outside of this pitch fest, how should people go about getting meetings? I'll tell you very, very quickly the 3 or 4 step way that we teach people to get meetings. And it's not selling on the first DM after connecting with you. And yes, it takes a little bit more time. Step number 1, engage in that person's content a number of times. Add something of value. Step number 2, after you've done that a few times and they've potentially and hopefully replied to your comment in their content, send them a message saying, hey, absolutely loving the content that you're producing, and I especially got X value out of that piece you wrote about Y. It shows that you're interested in what they're doing. You're actually making it about them. You're specifically referencing back to a piece of content that they've produced, which makes them feel good about it. And then just leave it. Don't ask for the meeting then. Just give them the kudos that they deserve and then let them reply. Because if they don't reply, they're not going to see value in meeting with you because they haven't seen enough value from you to bother responding to your message. If they then reply, that gives you the permission to then say, I would love to hear more about you and what you guys are doing with your business if you've ever got time for a coffee or whatever. So again, at any stage, have you said, this is what I do and these are the services that I sell? No, because you're making it about them. People love talking about themselves. People love sharing how good they are with their things, and they're much more likely to want to meet with you. Fingers crossed that meeting gets set and you go into that meeting and you do make it about them. Oh, great. Tell me about it. What's going on? What's going on with you guys? People pour their hearts out. They're amazing, the amount of information that you can get out of somebody when you make that meeting about them. And all through that first session, all through that first part of that session, you're going, oh, great. There's a good little bit of intel that I can use when I get my chance to speak. Oh, you've got challenges with that. Oh, you guys don't do any email marketing. Oh, right.
Maybe I can help.
Great. Absolutely guarantee you at some point they will turn around and go, oh, what's going on with you? Now you have permission to sell in the right way. We make it too much about us and what we do and how we fix their problems without even giving them the opportunity to open up and talk about themselves first. If you make it about them specifically, they are going to welcome you into their arms and they will give you so much more information than if they think it's a sales meeting right from the outset.
Well, it goes back to that club concept. If you sit down at their table and you're having a drink and you're meeting them for the very first time, you don't launch right into sales. You listen to who they are and what they're about, and you probably don't even cover it in that first meeting. You get up and you walk away and you hope you get invited back, and it's not till that third or fourth visit into the pub that you've built enough trust that they're like, all right, I'm open to learning more about you and what you're about.
And do you honestly think they're that stupid that if they're going to meet with you, they're not going to look at your profile and see what you do?
Well, great advice on LinkedIn. Now, before we jump into this other service that you provide, that I'm going to invite you in on doing a book promo with me. And I'm just completely winging this right now. So let's go ahead and swell the music. It's so great to have you here because I was writing this book when I was back in New Zealand a year and a half ago for the second time, and I finally got it done, launched it in June, Brand Bewitchery. And Glenn, it's kind of like what you were talking about with LinkedIn, in that what I did is just simply shared what I've learned in my 35 years of brand story development. And I've got all the warts and all in there, sharing lots of different kinds of stories with one aim, and that is to help any reader dial in their brand story and learn how to tell it using these proven systems, the network, the ABT narrative framework you had mentioned earlier, the 5 primal elements, to a short story for big impact that was really inspired by Sean Callahan from Anecdote. And of course, my story cycle system, the 10-step process that you can use for long-form communication. But more importantly in the book, brand story strategy. So if you haven't bought your version, your copy of Brand Bewitchery, you can get Kindle, print version on Amazon. You can go to Apple Books, and I am working on my audio version right now. So even though I've done all the talking, I'm glad that you came along for the ride on the promo, Glenn.
Absolutely. I cannot wait to hear your dulcet tones on the audio version as well.
Now, back to you. Connector. We've been working with some clients here in the U.S., and they were having a lot of challenges because they, like all of us, were doing all kinds of things, flailing around with digital, not sure, landing page, no landing page, the site's not working, whatever. And I said, I've got a mates down in Auckland, New Zealand, and they are doing some really cool things with this, and they're doing it very, very quickly. Introduced you all, got a chance to sit in on your sessions, and I was really blown away with how efficient and effective your work is. So we've talked about LinkedIn. Can you tell us about the other offering, the big offering there at Connector?
The simplified version is we do marketing coaching. When it comes down to it, most businesses have got capability or capacity issues. So they either outsource the capability or they don't have the capacity, so they still have to outsource it. What we do is we work with them and we very, very quickly get to the bottom of it. We figure out what needs to be done by them, right? They're already doing a good job. They don't need to pay for an agency or us to do the work for them. What needs to be done for them, they just don't have the capability or the capacity. And if they try and do it, they'll break it. And then where we specialize in is what is that stuff that we can do with you? What is that stuff that we can help you when you need to roll your sleeves up and all you need is those three things, right? Those three things. Clarity. What is going to be done that is going to get results? What are the quick wins? What's the high priority actions? What are the medium priority actions? And bonus if we can get to the low priority actions. Direction on how to do it. And I don't care if it's go to a Neil Patel blog. Here's a thing on YouTube. Use our training program if we've developed it and around that. You just need clarity and direction on how to actually implement and execute it. And then accountability, we meet with them once a fortnight to make sure that stuff gets done. And the philosophy is very, very much driven by, imperfect action beats procrastination and the strive for perfection every single time, right? Done is better than perfect. When we specialize with small to medium-sized businesses, it sounds terrible, but sometimes you've just got to be less crap than your competition to win the business.
You just have to be less crap than your competition? Is that right? Is that like the title of your new book coming out? Or
No, think about that with search engine optimization, with things like Google. Google is comparing you to everybody else. And so do you need to invest tens of thousands of dollars to do the best of the best of the best and implement absolutely everything? Or do you just need to be one step ahead of your competition so that Google looks at you and goes, well, they're better. I'm going to put you ahead of them. It's just simple stuff like that. So the beauty of it is because we either can plug in external resource that are specialists in their fields, or we coach people on implementing stuff themselves, then we're not tied to any platform. We're not tied to any product that we sell. So we're not in the old school agency model of we've got a black box to sell and we're going to try and fit you in it. It's what as a business do you need? And we will find the resources or we will coach you to make sure that those things can be implemented. Again, we're putting you first, as opposed to finding something to sell and then trying to find people to sell it to. We're finding people with problems and we're finding solutions for them.
It's a combination of coaching and helping them get their house in order so that they can do it themselves and or plug people in if they can't. And you're not relegated to any one platform and or relegated to any one country. You could do this anywhere. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, and we do. It's great. if COVID has done anything, it has just opened up a whole world of opportunity where people have realized that they don't need to be tied down by geographic location. New Zealand is a much more appealing location, not just because we're doing a great PR job in regards to how we're handling things, but we've got a credible amount of resource here in regards to talent. And we're just nice people, and people want to do business with nice people. So, hey.
I can attest to that because the day we were leaving Auckland, we were down in our lobby and we were chuckling over the stuck elevator. Thank God we weren't stuck on it, but someone was packed, and the very kind bellman and the security were down there trying to unload this elevator. And really, you could only see from shin down. And I remember the one guy pokes his head in and he goes, "Well, how's everything going?" And it's like, well, I think we know how everything's going. But then you called me and said, "Hey, Park, have you left yet?" And I said, "Nope, haven't left yet." I said, "I'll be right there." And you showed up with your wonderful homegrown honey that you, the raw honey, and it was delicious.
Yeah. Yeah. So everyone's got to have another little hobby. And so my hobby was keeping bees.
Well, I can attest to the charm and the generosity of you fine folks, you Kiwis down there in New Zealand. And it's been so much fun working with you and Connector this year. Where can people learn more about you?
Quite simply, you can go to Connector. That's Connector with a K, KONNECTOR.co.nz. So that's .co.nz. Or look me up on LinkedIn. I'm always there.
I know it. I know it. And do you have your LinkedIn training program coming up anytime soon?
Yeah, so our LinkedIn training program is on demand. So it's there, it's on the cloud. You can start it whenever you like. In fact, at the moment, we've got free search engine optimization training under that same deal that we had before. In fact, I think we've managed to make that one completely free.
And are you still selling the LinkedIn training for $1?
No, unfortunately. What is as we were coming out of the different levels of lockdown, the price went back up.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, Glenn, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's great to see you again, and I'm just delighted to hear how well your business is doing now.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you're the beacon of light in the sea of darkness.
Well said, mate.
Good on you, mate. Love catching up.
Thank you all for listening to this edition of The Business of Story with my good friend, Glenn Marvin. If you liked what you heard, share it with friends, family, colleagues, clients, anyone you know that is trying to find their way on LinkedIn and in the digital world to grow their business or to grow their hobbies for that matter. So please share this episode with them. If I can be of service to you, check me out at businessofstory.com. You know where to find Brand Bewitchery, Amazon, Apple Books. Maybe Glenn will be the narrator. Maybe I'll just have to get separate narrators for every single chapter. I've never done that. Maybe I got to find 12 people that like me enough to do that. And if I could be, I've already gone through if I can be of service to you. Oh, the one last thing I wanted to mention to you, of course, is our online course at businessofstory.thinkific.com. It works as a fine complement to the Brand Bewitchery book, and when you take it, you will also have a workbook, so it'll help you clarify your story to amplify your impact and simplify your life. Join us again next week when we will have another amazing brand story artist like Glenn here for you, and until then, you know what to do. Remember that the most potent story you'll ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So thanks so much for listening.
Done. Good stuff, mate.